Hi Martin,
Hello.
how are you doing?
Oh, not too bad. How about you?
Yeah, very good. Having fun with Imola. The first time I'm driving this track, and it's a handful. It's I manage to pull a fast lap every now and then, but I'm all over the place. Just repeating a fast lap is very difficult. So yeah,
Yeah, I guess that's normal. The track is kind of hard to learn. At least from my experience, it wasn't that easy to learn it. But once you get a hang of it, it's actually really good fun.
hmm
One of the classic tracks that have a good flow to it. At least most of the time, apart from a couple chicanes that they added
yeah,
afterwards, after a couple
yeah,
of incidents in the
yeah.
past.
Yeah, so I think the first chicane is definitely a challenge for me because it's a long straight afterwards. I think I'm losing quite a bit of time. I sometimes just go through the chicane well, and then I don't lose as much time. But it's just getting this consistent has been a challenge, and I think I also noticed the last turn is also a tricky one, and then you have this really long straight. So I typically lose time on the up to the finish line, and then I lose more time past the finish line down to the chicane. So I don't know if we should look at my fastest lap or maybe look at the averages because like I said, I really have difficulty repeating the fastest lap.
Wait, if it's difficult to repeat the fastest lap, then I'd probably go for the average fast or just not plain average. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
What would you prefer?
Well, let's look at the plain average. Yeah, let's do that. So I'm looking at. I have a bunch of sessions afterwards. I think it's probably a good one. So I'm looking at the one from 16:08:02:22:53, a 7 laps session.
7 lap session.
Yeah, it's somewhat short. I mostly did 7 to 9 laps. It's for
I guess
the
it's a session with a 5.45
yeah,
fastest.
yeah, that's it.
Okay,
And
and we'll take the average from that.
yeah,
Okay, and for Marty, I guess we go to the fastest lap.
yeah, let's do the fastest on the left side.
Okay, good. Um, yeah. So I guess chronologically again from sector one,
Yeah,
or should we?
yeah, let's do chronologically.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess that's almost 2/10 that I actually lose on the previous corner.
Yeah, that is a leftover from the last corner.
Yeah,
That's uh, that's quite a lot, really.
yeah.
Kind of surprised that it is that much. The speed difference. Wait a second. That can't be right. Can it?
Oh, I'm even losing time.
The thing that is sort of looking weird to me
Mm-hmm.
is the fact that the speed difference
Yeah.
is getting bigger towards the end of the first sector.
Huh.
You start off at 100 at 2.6 kilometers per hour difference,
Yeah.
and at the end of the sector, it's 3.8 kilometers per hour difference, which
Yeah, that's odd.
is surprising.
And I'm full throttle, so is it something
Yeah,
with the way I sweep through the kinks?
you are. Yeah, the lines are intersecting a little bit, but the amount of steering that you have to use is so little that it should not make any observable difference
Mm-hmm.
at all. I mean, uh, at at the very peak, you are turning around 10, 12 degrees to the right. That's negligible, in my opinion. That
Yeah.
shouldn't slow you
Well,
down at
this
all.
could be because it's an average. Maybe that's why it looks odd. Who knows?
Well, that could be, yeah.
Yeah.
That's entirely possible. Maybe the averaging messes with it, and it sort of looks like that.
Yeah.
That's possible. Maybe let's check the average for now, and then also check your fastest to see whether there is
Yeah.
also a noticeable difference in the speed, and the speed is getting speed difference is getting bigger towards the end of the sector,
Yeah.
or
So
whether that is
yeah. So I loaded the fastest, and there is a 0.88, and yeah, it increases. The difference increases. I'm full throttle, but let's see what's going on with the steering.
for some reason it's not loading yet for me. Oh no, it did.
Well, it increases very minorly. It's like 0.1 miles per hour. I think maybe this has to do with the steering, but it's very minor.
It's also decreasing towards the end again. It
Yeah.
stays at 1.6 then, from 1.4 to 1.6, so that's not too big. And your okay, that's also an explanation why that is happening. Your fastest lap is in the first lap of the stint, right after the pit out,
Yeah.
whereas Marty's fastest lap is in lap 4. It's a fourth time lap in the stint. So what could explain is the tire pressure difference and the temperature difference, which is then messing around with the rolling resistance of the tire. So with a warmer tire and a couple laps on it, the rolling resistance gets a little bit lower, and that might just improve the overall top speed, and also
Okay.
might explain why you are why the speed difference is getting bigger, even though there's nothing you can do wrong really. I mean, obviously the line can be slightly different, and also steering can be slightly different, but it's not explaining
Yeah.
why you would lose that much time
Yeah.
or that much speed. So I guess it's down to the rolling resistance.
Okay.
It probably just let's check just for the sake of it. Lap 5 in your stint, or in
Okay.
your session rather.
Yes.
So it's a fourth lap, and that's actually even worse. That is weird. That is very weird, actually. I am confused.
Could it be the steering input?
The difference is so small. I don't believe that would explain it. The only thing that even that doesn't really make much sense. There are no real bumps or undulation changes where you need to pay attention that the car isn't bottoming out. On some cars, that would be an issue. I think with a Lotus 79 or maybe even the MP430, you would maybe need to find the correct line in order to avoid bottoming out. But the Skippy isn't riding that low. It has a fair bit of ride height, so the chance of actually bottoming out, at least on the straightaway, unless you're riding curbs or having compressions, it's just not there. It doesn't explain it. And you're at 100% throttle. There's nothing you can do about that.
Well, I guess
But you're having more fuel, I think. You're at 7.6
Ah.
liters. He's at 4 liters. So maybe it's
that.
yeah. Although the difference looks unreasonably large for that, I don't think that the decreased weight just by having a couple liters less fuel would explain that kind of difference. But well, the car mass itself is also very low, so maybe it actually could explain it. I mean, the car is, I think, sub 500 kilograms, so 5 kilograms more or less in terms of fuel could actually make a difference. Maybe.
Okay,
Hard
that's
to tell.
interesting. I guess
But I
that's
don't think that
something-
it's linked to your inputs. I
Yeah.
mean, throttle is at 100 and the steering input is so similar that it just doesn't explain it.
Okay, so sector 2.
Yeah, let's check sector 2. Okay. I'd go over the line first.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, a little bit further on the outside on the approach, so that's actually not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you should be doing. But you sort of cross over then a couple meters
Mm-hmm.
before the corner,
Mm-hmm.
uh, just basically slightly after you start braking,
Yeah.
and you're then sort of making the corner a little bit tighter than it
Mm-hmm.
needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
So you could sort of go a little bit further to the outside and just
Yeah.
increase the corner radius.
Mm-hmm.
And um, yeah, in the first corner, you're actually tracking out a good bit more, um, exiting the left-hander.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably the thing that is slowing you down overall in the sector,
Yeah.
since you then just compromise the exit for the right-hander, which is probably close to flat out,
Yeah.
and you just have less momentum, and that sort of
Yeah.
yeah is the case for the entire rest of the sector. It's also
And
visible in the time graph.
yeah.
You
And
actually
it.
gain a little bit
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning,
Yeah.
since you're braking a couple meters later. The
Mm-hmm.
braking profile looks good, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
That's not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
Peak is, I think, 3% lower or so,
Mm-hmm.
but the shape of the brake looks quite nice. Also, the
Mm-hmm.
way you release it is good.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're slightly too late on the brake,
Okay. Yeah.
and yeah, that's probably also the reason why you track out a little bit more, because you're
Yeah.
just too fast into the corner. I
Mm-hmm.
think at the apex or around the apex, you're, according to the speed graph, 2.7 kilometers an hour faster.
Yeah. So I
And
used to, I guess I overcorrected, but I used to be whole 15 kilometers per hour slower because of I was braking earlier. So I guess I just overcorrected.
yeah, that's probably the case.
Yeah.
Just dial it back a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and then it should be fine.
Okay. And yeah, I
And
guess the first just taking a narrower line that sets me off for the rest of the sequence. So I should
yeah,
really work on the cornering radius for the chicane on the entry.
yeah, I think the most important thing to get right there is just the entry. If you set up the entry correctly, the rest will be kind of easy to get right as well, because it's, I think the second part, and especially the third part, um, they're not really that tricky of a corner, since it's with that car, you're not running into traction problems, you're also not running into grip problems in any form, since
Mm-hmm.
the car is just too slow for that.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing you need to do is get the line somewhat right and
Yeah.
accelerate. But the first corner, that's where you basically decide the rest of the sector. If
Mm-hmm.
you mess up the first part uh, of that complex, then the rest is messed up as
Yeah.
well. It's a similar case to the Ascari chicane in Monza, or
Mm-hmm.
the SS in Circuit of the Americas.
Yeah.
It's basically the same deal. Mess up
Yeah.
the beginning, and the complete sector
Yeah.
is messed up. If you
Yeah.
get the beginning right, then chances
Yeah.
are fairly high that the rest will sort of fall into
Yeah.
place as well.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll focus just on the entry and then the rest, which should happen automatically.
Do you have issues with oversteer in turn one?
Um,
It looks like, at least in the steering graph, that at around, what is that, 670, 680 meters, you have a massive correction.
um, I guess maybe because I'm coming in with more speed and I'm turning. I guess am I still on the brake? I'm releasing the brake. I guess I'm releasing the brake and I'm applying quite a bit of throttle. I don't know if that helps or that contributes to the problem. But I think it happens because it feels to me like I'm coming in with quite a bit of speed. I don't know if sometimes I feel like I'm actually turning in too early. So I'm about to run over the curb, or sometimes it feels like I'm just shooting out too wide into the curb on the other side. I mean, that's an average as well, so it could be one lap that affects this.
That's right. That's something I didn't consider with the average.
Yeah,
This is maybe
I'll look at a couple and
causing
let's
it.
see. Yeah, I do it on the fastest lap. Let's
Okay.
see, some other lap.
Another thing
Well,
that
there are only 4 laps anyway, I guess, clean laps. So, let's see.
Okay, another thing that just popped into my mind, which is something that you might want to try.
Mm-hmm.
I see that you're using around 40% of throttle,
Mm-hmm.
sort of in the middle of the corner.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. It could be because obviously that you are trying to balance out the car a little bit with it,
yeah.
but I would strongly recommend not doing that, as usually feeding in throttle at that speed
Mm-hmm.
just adds more understeer. And since
Mm-hmm.
you already are facing the problem that you're running a little bit wide in that particular corner,
Mm-hmm.
I try to stay away from throttle
Mm-hmm.
for a little bit longer and then uh, hit it heavier.
Yeah.
Uh, Less throttle modulation. Just
Mm-hmm.
drive more in a digital way.
Yeah, so Marty has quite a bit of, well, not that high percentage, but he plays with the throttle quite a bit. I think some of that is for downshifting, but here in the turn-in phase, um, I guess he just uses it to balance the car better, right?
Probably, yeah.
But I guess
It
I'm
could just be
overdoing it.
that I'm not sure what the brake bias is on that setup.
I think that was 58. Let me see. No,
Apparently,
55%.
55 is very far back. It could very well be that he's using the throttle to artificially or virtually move the brake bias forward, just
Mm-hmm.
because you sort of, instead of having all that much brake torque in the rear, you just feed engine torque in the other direction
Mm-hmm.
into it, so that basically the effective brake bias moves forward a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That could be an explanation, especially considering that it's only 55 brake bias. I think when I drove the car last, I used either 57 or 58.
Mm-hmm.
So a significant bunch more front brake torque.
Okay. But regardless, if even if that's the reason, I guess I'm overdoing it. I shouldn't. If that's what I would be doing, I should be applying less throttle, right? I guess he's only doing about 20%.
Well, I wouldn't say necessarily doing it less. It sort of depends on what you can manage in terms of rear brake bias.
Mm-hmm.
Brake bias is sort of driver dependent. It's
Mm-hmm.
a matter of driving style and also just preference.
Mm-hmm.
And Marty is someone who's using a lot of brake bias. And I know that from the old days when we were driving the Williams car in the World
Mm-hmm.
Championship Series, he was always running 1 or 2% less brake bias
Mm-hmm.
than I was using. And
Mm-hmm.
I have no clue whatsoever how he managed to get around the track without dying all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I guess it's just a driver preference thing. He can somehow manage it. So maybe in case you're sort of also struggling with managing it, it might be viable to actually use 40% of throttle.
Mm-hmm.
That's not something I would consider something that needs apparent changing.
Mm-hmm.
If it's done for that reason, if it's sort of, it could be that you are trying to offset the brake bias, then it's
Mm-hmm.
fine. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
just for no particular reason
Yeah.
going on the throttle, some people have the habit to just have some throttle in the middle of the corner,
Mm-hmm.
but when I ask them why, they don't even
Yeah.
know. They just do that.
No, I think it
And
definitely helps me just go through the chicane with the higher speed, because when I was slowing down more, it was no problem. But I think without some throttle, I feel like I would just lose the car. So, but maybe what you said earlier, maybe 40% is too much. Maybe I need just, and that's what pushes me off wider. So
could be.
I'll play.
At least I could imagine that it adds some understeer, and also the modulation you have going from 40-ish
Mm-hmm.
to around 70 and then to 100. That also just adds a little bit more understeer
Mm-hmm.
to the whole situation. And since you're already running wide, I would recommend
Okay.
trying to use less throttle
Okay.
if it's possible. If you have problems with spinning out, then obviously that is
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of a different problem.
Yeah.
And y- yeah,
I'll,
but for first thing that I tried to change is
mm-hmm.
just moving the breakpoint a little bit further back. Then
Yep.
it
Okay.
probably should already fix
Got it.
most of the issues that you run wide. I mean, running wide is basically just the result of you being too quick in the corner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those 2.5 kilometers per hour that
Yeah.
they sort of
Yeah.
cause
Got
it.
it. Okay. Cool. Makes sense.
All right. Any further things for sector 2, or shall
So
we?
you're again looking at the average, right?
Yeah, I'm still looking at the average.
Okay, because I was looking at the fastest. Okay, so let's see 3. Okay, so that's the next sequence. Let's see.
Yeah, that's I think Villeneuve, is the caller name. So one thing that's good already that I can see is you're using more space now on corner entry. You're approaching it from further outside, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely good thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
The apex is fine, but you don't track out as much before the right-hander. And then you have also a much wider entry for the right-hander,
Mm-hmm.
which is also good.
Mm-hmm.
But then the issue that I see, just line-wise, is you're not using the space on exit that is available. Marty is tracking out a good bit more, and therefore he could just carry more speed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I try to change. And also, the first thing is he's not shifting down to. Yeah, he is shifting down to second gear, whereas you're staying in third.
Mm-hmm.
That also might be a little bit of an issue.
Oh, he switches. Oh, he changes one gear down on the first corner and then one more before the second. Yeah. I see.
Yeah. Other than that, I think the line on entry is definitely good. I try to keep that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would suggest doing is to try to carry a little bit more speed through the left-hander and track out a little bit wider.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not as wide as Marty. Unfortunately, due to the obviously in the Google Maps integration, I can't really tell how
Yeah.
big the difference is. Let me quickly check. 1.35 meters line distance. It's difficult to judge without actually looking at the replay to see what's happening.
Yeah.
But I would suggest not tracking out as far because after all, you don't really gain all that much because it's a very short straight in between. And I'd rather invest what the car has to offer into the straight towards Tosa. So try to maybe have a hybrid between your line and Marty's line for the first corner. And then for the second part, hit the apex as you did it. That was fine. But just try to carry a little bit more speed into the corner and track out further.
Yeah.
You can just use more of the available space.
Right. Yeah. Okay, and I guess to carry more speed, I just need to brake later. And
That would be the preferred option, yeah.
yeah.
You both brake earlier and also a little bit harder overall.
Yeah.
So
It's about 10
you could probably
meters.
get away with either less braking or later braking, or maybe even
Yeah.
both.
Okay. Okay. All right.
And for the second part, yeah, change down the gear. That would be good. And also maybe that probably will already be achieved by changing down a gear. That will certainly help it. I'm just not sure how much. But you seem to suffer from some significant understeer in that right-hander. At least you're steering a lot more than Marty does at times. So
Maybe
changing down gear can
unnecessarily.
probably help. That will rotate the car a little bit better.
And maybe unnecessarily because I take a tighter line, so maybe it's a combination of, well, but I have lower speed.
It's a combination of both. I mean, obviously you need to sort of turn a little bit more, but overall it's not that much. I mean, geometrically, it looks like the corner radius is about the same. It's just shifted a little bit because you're sort of
Right.
entering from further outside, but end up further on the inside at the
Yeah.
exit. So the
Got it.
effective corner radius is probably not too different.
All right.
So yeah, try to use a little bit less steering there. But as a starter, changing down the gear is probably a good idea. That will most probably also already help with the rotation and will give you some more oversteer or less steer.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Other than that, yeah, for the second corner, you're braking also a little bit earlier, but much less now. Probably a byproduct of the speed difference that is already there from the first corner. So you have to
Yeah.
brake less.
Yeah.
Other than that, throttle application on exit looks relatively similar, although your first plateau is a bit higher. Yeah, both of you are using a good bit of throttle in the middle of the corner. It's probably also just a balancing maintenance throttle. That's fine. What I noticed though is at your peak, when you're fully on the brake for that corner, you're still having around 3% of throttle. So
Oh. Yeah, this
that's
could be
some.
the average. But
Ah,
yeah,
yeah.
there might be some overlap too. I think I do overlap a little bit. Let's look at, I'll look at the fastest just to roll this out. But it's a different sector there. Yeah, I do have overlap.
Okay.
Quite a bit. 30% braking and 25% throttle.
Although that's not something that I worry too much about.
Yeah.
That's obviously not ideal, but it's not terrible as long as it's not too much. Have you checked whether you have those 2 or a couple percent while you're fully on the brake and
Oh,
obviously
no, no,
intending to not accelerate at all?
no, no, no.
I mean, overlap while you are sort of
Yeah,
transitioning to braking,
yeah.
that's fine. But having some static throttle
No, I
while you're
don't.
fully on the brakes, that's something that shouldn't be
No,
happening.
no, I don't have that. No.
Okay, then it's just caused by the averaging.
Yeah.
So then disregard my complaint.
Okay.
All right. Any further questions so
No, I
far?
think not for this one.
Okay, then I guess we can go to sector 4.
Yep.
That's Tosa. Okay. In terms of line, you are a little bit too much on the inside for my liking.
Yeah.
Towards the entry. Could use a little bit more space.
Yeah.
Middle of the corner, apex looks really good. But you're a little bit too far on the outside, or at least you're further on the outside,
Yeah.
exiting the corner than Marty is. I'm not sure whether that's a bad thing or not. I'd need to check what where the time difference is coming from and what that is.
I guess I'm gaining a little bit on the entry and then I'm losing it.
Yeah, you definitely are gaining a little bit on entry. Your breaking point is fine, but your peak is a little bit lower, and yeah, you slowed down just a lot less than Marty is. Although effectively towards the end of the braking phase, since you're sort of braking for a longer time,
Yeah.
the speed is actually a little bit lower for you in the middle of the corner, or
Yeah.
sort of between the very entry and the middle. So you could just make the braking a little bit more effective by braking at the same point, but braking harder and releasing earlier. That would probably gain you a little bit. And I think where the big difference is coming from, where the time really starts climbing, is the transition to full throttle. It appears to be that you're sort of going into the throttle to around 30-ish%. So you're on power much earlier.
Yeah.
And that's very likely also causing you to go a little bit wide there
Right,
with
yeah.
a line. It just sort of adds understeer. And yeah, it then takes you a good bit longer to go to full throttle, and that's the point at which when you look at the throttle graph, the vertical line in Marty's lap,
Yeah.
that's pretty much lining up with the increase in time difference in the time graph.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just shortly after it starts climbing
Yeah.
quite steeply. So
Yeah.
I think that's the main cause
Okay.
where it's time is lost. Also, you seem to at least once you go into the throttle, the first bit, that 30-ish% bump, shortly after, you also see a massive difference in steering wheel lock. You're turning about twice as much.
Yeah.
So that also indicates that you're suffering from pretty terrible understeer in that
Yeah.
corner.
And I guess that's induced by the throttle
Yeah,
earlier on. Okay.
that's very likely at least one of the causes.
Yep. Okay.
But yeah, since the rest looks pretty good, and also your speed in the middle, and while you're a little bit quick on entry, in the middle it's reasonable. So I don't think that you're overshooting that terribly. So yeah, the understeer is most likely just caused by the throttle input.
Okay, got it. All right, quite a bit of time in the next section.
That's two sweepers, I guess. Well, sort of two connected sweepers. That's kind of a difficult corner. Very hard to get consistent, at least. At least when I was preparing for the track, it was quite a difficult one to nail lap after lap. Okay, going by the line, you're a little bit further on the outside. That is good. That is something I'd like to see. You're also turning in around the same time, really, but you're turning. Actually, do you have oversteer there? Ah, yeah, probably. Oh, what is causing that? You're some reason steering close to zero. Your steering log is close to zero while Marty is turning, but that could be averaging. So I'm not entirely sure on that why that is. But what definitely is happening is you're braking much earlier, but also much less. And that much less is causing a speed difference of around 7 kilometers per hour in favor of your speed. So you're going faster, but that additional speed is probably one of the causes why there's a massive line difference after the initial turn in. You're tracking out very, very far, and yeah, that sort of leads to the problem that you can't accelerate for ages. And for that reason, the time delta climbs significantly towards the end of the corner. If you look at the difference in throttle application, Marty is going to, on average, I'd say 70-ish%. He has a couple of fluctuations up and down, but on average, I'd say 70 at around 2,300 meters. And then at roughly 2,320, 25, he's at 100%, and
Yeah.
at that point you're not in the throttle at all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's probably the explanation why there's so much time lost. I mean, you're gaining a little bit on entry because you're quicker, but you more than just lose that amount in the exit phase, the corner. So as a suggestion, either brake. You can probably brake a little bit later, as you're also
Yeah.
having a little bit less speed at the beginning of the sector to begin with.
Yeah.
But definitely brake harder and slow down a little bit more on entry, and try to really hug the inside
Yep.
quite well.
Okay.
And once you hug the inside, you can just accelerate much earlier, and that's where all the time is lost.
Yep.
As far as I can see.
Yeah.
And yeah, steering wise, in the middle of the corner, it still looks like you're steering a bit too much. That's also maybe well, it's not a gear issue; it's a third gear corner clearly. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure where that comes from. It could be just from entering too quickly that this is causing you to turn more.
Yeah.
Because it's just running wide.
Yeah, I think so.
Or yeah, potentially the tires are overheated from the couple from the corners before, but on the Skippy that's typically not too much of a problem since the tires are fairly hard and not very temperature sensitive. At least compared to most of the other cars, it's quite forgiving. You can abuse it quite badly without it punishing you immediately.
Okay, so I mean, looks like it's mostly just the braking. If I fix that, the rest should pretty much fall into place.
Yeah, but most likely, if you get the braking right, the line will probably fall into place. And once that is sorted out and you're hugging the inside a little bit better, then you should be able to accelerate much earlier. And lap time, or at least sector time in that particular sector, should decrease dramatically.
Yep. Okay, so then the next one is, yeah, that's that's a tricky one.
Yeah, it only gets worse with the faster cars because it's sort of just slowing down, then turn in while slowing down, and then slow down even more.
Yeah.
It's something that's really ugly. And with some cars, you also have to deal with a front that's sometimes likely to bottom out. And with the downforce dependent cars, if the front is very close to the ground, it makes a bit more downforce, and then the car even starts to oversteer while under braking, while turn. It's not a beautiful thing to have.
Yeah.
So yeah, a tricky one. Even in the slower cars, it's tricky, but it gets even worse the faster the car becomes. So yeah, you can look forward to driving the faster cars at that track.
Yeah.
Okay, regarding the line, again, your entry is nice since you're further on the outside. That's good. Nice to
I
see.
guess carrying a lot less speed than Marty because of just the entry from the previous turn. Or the exit from the previous turn.
That is correct. The first bit of that of those 1.1 tenths, that's just down to the exit speed of the corner before. I mean, it's going from 1.2 seconds to 1.35, 1.28 to 1.35. So we're sort of dealing with 7/100ths out of those 1.1 tenths just from the corner exit before. So that is quite massive. But yeah, on entry, you're further on the outside. Apex is good, and you're using a little bit less space, I believe, on exit. So you could actually go even quicker through that first section and use a little bit more space.
Yeah.
And on the second corner,
I guess I
it's
do
basically
this.
the same.
I think I do this because otherwise, if I'm too close to the curb, I guess if I step on the curb, it's more likely to just run off track. So maybe I'm just conservative and trying to stay more towards the middle.
Yeah, that is a good thing, especially in the beginning of the practice or in the beginning of a race. I mean, the thing is quite treacherous at that point. If you hit the outside edge of the track, uh, you're basically pretty much on the limit with that car there.
Yeah.
You're under braking, at least in the fast cars. With the Skippy, you might be coasting a little bit there, but with the faster cars, you're under braking and turning, and then you're sort of trying to hit the outer edge while you're still sort of at the ragged edge of adhesion. So
Yeah.
if you overdo it a little bit and you have your left rear wheel on the grass, then you can say goodbye. Then
Yeah.
it's time for the excursion
Yeah.
to the travel trap. So being a little bit conservative there is definitely not hurting all that much. Also, not losing you a whole lot of time if you're slightly conservative in that part. But yeah, a little bit more space could be used, but it won't gain you a whole lot magically.
Yeah.
It's just for the last couple hundreds might be useful. In qualifying, depending on how many laps you have, I guess in the official series you only have 2 laps or 3 laps, so
Yeah.
maybe there it's also not necessarily worth the risk. If it's some hosted league where you have unlimited qualifying attempts or just, I don't know, half an hour of qualifying with unlimited laps, I'd take the risk. Just
Yeah.
use a little bit more space. And I think the second half of that section is quite interesting because you're losing a significant amount of time in the braking phase for the second corner, but you're gaining most of it back on the exit. And that is actually something that's really good. You're running a tighter line through the second part of the corner, and you're also able to run then a tighter line in the left-hand uphill sweeper thing,
Yeah.
which is really good. The thing where I believe the time is then sort of lost again. Let me quickly check.
Yeah. The speed delta increases again.
Yeah, I could imagine. How are you are shifting with auto clutch or you're shifting without any?
I'm shifting. I mean, I press the pedal and then release throttle most of the time. I'm still getting used. Sometimes if I miss a shift, then I use the clutch.
Is there some sort of auto clutch enabled on your end?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, because it seems quite weird that the speed delta changes pretty much right around the time where you change gear.
Maybe I'm just too slow. What do I do? Do I lift up? No, I don't lift up. Is there the clutch? I guess we don't
We
have
quickly
a...
check the fastest lap in that sector. That seems really awkward because your exit actually looks a little bit better, and the line also looks really good in that regard. But for some reason, you're losing time, and that's something that I don't quite get my head around as of now.
Yeah, it's probably something with the averages. The fastest one looks good. I mean, the time delta is decreasing.
Although in the fastest lap, for some reason, the line looks similar, but there is a sort of no point where you sort of gain time in the exit phase of that second corner. It's just it seems like you're entering slightly too slow, and also too slow mid corner, and while sort of due to that fact, you're sort of decreasing the speed delta at the beginning of the acceleration phase quite dramatically. You can't make up for it. The speed difference that you have had mid corner is sort of staying there. There's some residue of that over the rest of the sector and the upper section.
Yeah. So actually, the fastest lap is the opposite of what we saw in the in the average.
Yeah, at least in terms of time and speed difference.
Yeah.
The line looks the same though, or roughly the same.
Yeah. Okay, so the line is, you prefer this line?
I haven't driven the Skippy around the track, so I can't really
Mm-hmm.
tell 100% for sure that this is the better line.
Mm-hmm.
But at least from the laps I've done with the McLaren MP430,
Mm-hmm.
it definitely appeared so that the the more straight you can get the car accelerating out of that section, the
Mm-hmm.
better it is. So it
Mm-hmm.
was usually better to run a tighter line and not even track out all that much,
Mm-hmm.
and then just have a very straight line and just
Mm-hmm.
accelerate as hard as possible without having to turn all that much.
Mm-hmm.
Although on the Skippy, I could imagine that this maybe is slightly different because the car doesn't really uh, have any issue with traction. You can accelerate while turning
Mm-hmm.
without any risk of sort of spinning out or losing
Yeah.
traction. Whereas in the McLaren, you just have too much engine for too little tire in that
Mm-hmm.
situation, and you sort of just need to set priorities. Do you want to
Yeah.
corner? Do you want to accelerate? And
Mm-hmm.
in the McLaren, the better bet is to just focus on good acceleration and sacrifice some mid corner speed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, another question I have here is Marty's brake trace looks interesting because he applies some brake initially, I guess, then releases for the downshift, but then applies more brake pressure. I
Yeah,
guess typically it's the other way around. You start with more brake pressure and then you release and trail a little bit.
typically it would be the other way around. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what he's doing there or what the purpose was. And he's braking, releasing, and then braking again, and then only downshifts. His downshift is occurring in the process while he ramps up the brake pressure to
Mm-hmm.
its final peak.
Yeah.
So I'm not exactly sure why he released it. I could imagine that maybe he noticed that he's too early on the brake and then started
Mm-hmm.
coasting for a bit and then went back to the brake.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know for sure.
Okay.
It looks untypical,
Yeah.
but it's hard to figure out the reason
Okay. So it's
why he
maybe
would do that.
just reaction in the moment and not like a deliberate technique.
Yeah, probably. At least I can't find a good explanation why you would
Mm-hmm.
want to do that.
So I think when he downshifts, he always blips the throttle a little bit, and I think I tend to only downshift under braking, and the Skippy doesn't really need you to do anything else. Is that something is that a technique I should learn for the Skippy?
Um, Not necessarily for the Skippy. The Skippy has a fairly low inertia engine, and if you shift down, you don't really need rev matching.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice bonus, but the car won't really do anything too bad when you don't do it. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
in the transition from second gear to first gear, it could be an issue, but other than that, it typically doesn't do anything. But I'd still recommend learning to do it the proper way with a blip on downshift,
Mm-hmm.
just for the sake of being prepared for other cars. There
Mm-hmm.
are other cars around that are punishing you a lot more for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the GT cars that don't have the auto blip,
Mm-hmm.
like the GT1 cars,
Mm-hmm.
the Corvette is a pretty good example. That has a really beefy, heavy engine,
Mm-hmm.
lots of inertia, and if you shift down without blipping there, either the gear won't go in.
Mm-hmm.
That's the probably more pleasant option.
Mm-hmm.
The other option is the gear goes in and you get some wheel hop in the rear, and then
Mm-hmm.
things get really ugly. You get
Mm-hmm.
a lot of oversteer
Mm-hmm.
on corner entry and under braking, and that's something you really don't want to have,
Yeah.
especially if you have, uh, you know, a car that has fairly big traction problems to begin with. If you have wheel hop in
Mm-hmm.
the beginning of the braking zone or even the end of the braking zone, you heat up the tires. The car is kind of oversteery in general, and with the increased tire temperature you get from the wheel up and the lockup, you'll have even more problems getting out of the corners. The Corvette has so much torque and so much engine in relation to its tire capabilities that it's kind of a handful to begin with. It has traction control, but even that can't save you from everything. So for some cars, it's definitely something that is beneficial to to have mastered at some point.
Okay.
And yeah,
So,
while it's not needed for the Skippy, I'd still recommend doing it just
Yeah.
for the sake of getting used to it
right.
and learning it. And it surely can't do a harm
Yeah.
in any form. I mean, the only harm that I can imagine is that you will use a little bit more fuel, but
Yeah. And then should I try to release brake pressure while doing this or not? Because
No.
it looks like he sometimes is doing it, other times he's not.
I don't see a reason for doing it. You can keep the brake pressure pretty much constant. You just need to time it properly. I mean, it sometimes can be a little bit hard to do, especially if you're using the clutch to downshift as well, which I believe if you would drive that car realistically, you would have to right foot brake and then sort of clutch, right foot brake, and then sort of do some heel and toe action and get a throttle blip while braking with the right foot. Then a reduction in brake pressure can just be a byproduct of your leg not being able to press a brake with a constant pressure while doing heel and toe and while blipping the throttle. That is a fairly difficult exercise to do, to just keep constant brake pressure while blipping with one foot. That really is difficult. But if you're left foot braking, I don't really see an issue why you would reduce brake pressure while blipping.
And I see that he like sometimes it's just 4% throttle, sometimes it's more. I guess I should just like get a feel for when the car, how much the car needs. I guess since the Skippy doesn't really need it, I guess, would I know if that helps, or if I'm doing, if I'm applying enough or not enough throttle?
Well, that's hard to tell. A way you can practice it, just to see how much a gearbox needs, how much blip, is to just not brake at all. You just sort of drive in fifth gear, preferably on an oval where you have lots of space and can do relatively high speeds without the necessity of braking. So just go to Daytona or Talladega, and then just accelerate to fifth gear to, I don't know, 200 kilometers an hour or so. Lift off the throttle and then try to shift down. And you will notice that if you just push the shifter pedal while coasting and not braking, the engine braking, the torque that you get from the engine, the negative torque in that case, that's hindering the gearbox from popping into the lower gear. So while you keep the shifter pedal pressed, you just slowly increase throttle until the gear pops out and you go down the gear. And if you practice that for a little bit, you sort of then know how much throttle you would need if you're not braking. Obviously, if you're braking, due to the inertia of the engine, you will need a little bit less blip to get the gearbox unloaded, so that there's no significant torque in the gearbox that prevents the gear from changing. So you need a little bit less while you're on the brakes. But for sake of simplicity, since it doesn't really hurt you all that much, I would just practice that on an oval to see how much throttle it needs to get out of gear. And then just keep that amount of throttle in practice as well. You can obviously get away with a little bit less in races, but for the beginning, to learn it, I would just keep the throttle amount constant.
Okay, makes sense. All right, cool. I guess we're almost through the track.
Yeah, it's getting close. Only 3 to 4 corners to go.
Yeah.
Depending on how you count.
Which sector? Because when I switch them back and forth, that it's
7 would now be
7.
Would now be due. That's a
okay.
Variante Alta, I believe it is. The gap is quite close. 22 1,000ths of a second. That's not much. Not much at all. So let me just quickly check the line first. You're a little bit further on the inside in the beginning, but you're crossing over now further on the outside at the actual braking zone. So that's good. And on turn in, you're actually a little bit further on the inside. It appears that you are taking a little bit more of the curb, which is good. You can abuse the curb quite badly without being punished for it. At least in the cars that I've driven so far, it's good to run quite a lot of curb, especially on entry. Um, you're also doing that on exit. That also seems that you're a good bit further on the inside, which again is something that I wouldn't necessarily see as a negative thing. Most cars can take it, and if you get the setup on the higher end cars dialed in so that the damper is doing its job properly and the car isn't bouncing afterwards, there's also nothing wrong with taking lots of curb there. And on exit, you're actually tracking out wider and making use of the space. I'm not sure whether you were on the AstroTurf there.
A
If
little
you
bit,
were,
yeah, I think so.
okay, that AstroTurf, I'm not even sure whether it's AstroTurf or whether that's some sort of asphalt that is just painted in green. But from what I've noticed, there is not too big of a grip difference when you accelerate on that particular part of the track. So using that is fine in my opinion, especially on the Skippy, where you're not running into traction problems anyway. So I don't see a reason why you shouldn't use it. That's a good thing. On the higher end cars, it's maybe not great, but at least from my experience in the McLaren, it doesn't do anything bad. And if it doesn't do anything bad there,
Yeah.
it should be fine for most of the other cars as well. So in terms of line, that's quite good. What I would suggest doing though is go a little bit further to the left hand side of the track before the right hand kink in the downhill section. Reason for that is it's maybe not necessarily needed for the Skippy,
Yeah.
but what it does is basically it allows it to run a little bit of a wider radius in the downhill in that kink.
Yeah.
And if you are on the left hand side of the track and then sort of go through the kink, it allows you to stay to the right hand side exiting the kink much easier. While that may not be an apparent issue in the Skippy, in the faster cars like a Lotus 49 or a Lotus 79 or even in the McLaren MP430, it becomes an issue because you have to get through the kink and then immediately start braking. And if you are in doing that kink from the inside and on the entry, you sort of have to start braking while you're still turning a little bit, and that just is a big risk for locking up the right front tire. And if that one locks up, it already overheats, and since the next corner is a left-hander, you will have a really bad time on entry since the car will just understeer really badly. So I would recommend to just set up the braking phase already and do the cornering as early as you can and set the car straight for the braking zone.
Makes sense. Okay, that makes sense.
It's just it probably won't do anything in terms of lap time, in terms of the line, the distance you travel or something. So it's probably just good practice for progression later on to the faster cars, that you have already the correct line in your mind and you don't have to adjust between the Skippy and other cars.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
Okay. Now that the line is covered, sort of, actually, I think that the line topic is covered. The rest of it is, fairly good, I'd say. Your braking is a little bit earlier and also a little bit less overall. But that's not necessarily bad. You're carrying a little bit more speed into the corner, and you're doing a tighter line at the same time. So that's good, I'd say. That's really good, actually. And in the transition between the left-hander and right-hander, you're slightly slower, 0.8 kilometers per hour on average. That's not a lot. That's where you're losing a little bit of time, according to the graph. But as you're a little bit earlier on power, at right around 3,340 meters, that's where you gain a good bit of time. You're carrying a good bit more momentum out of the corner. And yeah, that's where you gain, more than half a tenth. It's around point 0.5.
Yeah.
It's actually exactly half a tenth. So that's good. And yeah, from then on, exiting the corner, while both of you are fully on the power, the speed delta seems to go the other direction again.
Yeah, that's again with, I think that's again with the averages.
Maybe, and maybe also the shift times. It appears that Marty is changing gear a bit earlier than you. There seems to be some sort of little notches in the graph.
Yeah.
And that those notches incidentally exactly line up with the points where Marty or you are shifting.
Yes.
So maybe it's indicating a little bit of a problem that you're shifting a little bit too late.
Yeah.
Maybe run into the ref limiter as well, briefly.
Got it.
So that's something you could try to pay attention to as well, to just shift at a point where it's not too late. You should never bang into the ref limiter in that car. It's one of the momentum cars, and each bit where you're not accelerating because you're in the ref limiter is causing a massive time difference.
So actually, if you look at the throttle trace, looks like he's lifting off after me. I mean, I guess that's the lift off for the gear change.
Let me see. You are going to third gear earlier, and then he's going to third gear. Okay. And afterwards, did I just mix up the laps or something? I'm kind of confused now. On exit there, it appears to be that. Sorry, forget what I just said. I think I mixed that up. You're shifting earlier. You could rev out more. Sorry about that.
Okay, so the opposite I should.
Yeah, shift a little bit later. Sorry, I got that mixed up.
Okay, no problem. Okay.
But what still stays true is never go into the ref limiter. You should always try to avoid that, because if you bang the ref limiter, you just can't accelerate anymore. It's better to shift a little bit too early and sort of have steady acceleration, apart from the brief second where you are sort of switching gear. But if you're running to the ref limiter, you have no acceleration at all. And then there's another point where there's no sort of acceleration while you're shifting gear. So the time loss is much bigger. So never go into the ref limiter. Unless you have a short straight where you don't plan to shift up because it's too much of a hassle. If you have, let's say, a very short straight where you hit the ref limiter for a quarter of a second, or have the option to shift up and then shift down again and have all that hassle with lifting and then blipping and all that stuff, then it's fine to just go into the ref limiter real quick.
I noticed this on a few of the turns on Zandvoort. Marty was doing this. He was just hitting the rev limiter briefly. Because, that was right before the breaking point.
Yeah, in some situations it doesn't make sense to shift up again. If you shift up for 5 meters of acceleration, then have to shift down again, then it's just a waste of time. And just another factor that potentially might throw you off. I mean, each downshift is a potential risk of messing up. Maybe not in that car, since it doesn't require a good blip. But in the Corvette, for example, when you have to blip correctly, each downshift is a possible source of error. And if you can avoid another downshift, without a penalty in terms of acceleration, then I'd always go for that.
Right.
Although that's obviously a weird thing to say. I mean, obviously, a good driver should not have any risk whatsoever when shifting down. But
Yeah.
even if the risk is very small, I mean,
Yeah.
out of maybe 1,000 downshifts, one also goes wrong.
Yeah.
But over an endurance race, I don't know. Maybe if you do that, you can sort of over a 24-hour race save 100 downshifts, then the
Yeah.
probability is already there that
Yeah.
one of the shifts might be messed up.
Makes
And
sense.
it's
Yeah.
just minimizing risk after all.
And then
Even though the risk is
and
small,
some turns are more risky than others, so that's also a factor.
yeah, that is true as well.
Yeah.
In some in some braking zones, maybe you have terrible bumps in the road, and that makes downshifting a lot more complex than on a very flat surface.
Yeah.
I mean, if you do that on the Nordschleife right after Schwedenkreuz, then it's a lot more difficult than, let's say, you do that at, I don't know. Actually, Coda is kind of difficult as well, but there are places where you have such a flat surface that it's almost impossible to mess up that badly, to throw you off. And on other tracks, it's
Yeah.
if you're not careful, it might easily happen. So that's a factor to consider as well. You're right.
Yep. Yep. Cool. So next part looks mostly good, I guess.
Sector 8, yeah, that looks mostly good. Let me quickly check. Yeah, you're slightly further on the inside at the beginning, but not overly so. It's no big deal. You're also hitting the apex much better. It seems that Marty missed the apex a little bit, or missed the curb, which is definitely a bad thing. You should hit the curb really hard. You can actually cut across it quite badly. And due to the shape of the curb, it's some sort of, it looks like half a baguette, really. It's some sort of, if you drive over it, it goes up and then it goes down a bit again. And if you can sort of use that to hook the tire into some sort of, can't really say guardrail, but it's some kind of like slot car racing. You have basically you can use it as a slot, and it should pull you through the corner a bit. And it probably is it's really beneficial to run over that curb and sort of use that as a little bit of a hook to keep you sort of on the inside. So that's really good. That's something you should definitely try to keep. Let me quickly see. You are losing time in the braking phase. There's a fairly big speed difference most of the time. That's partly because of the exit of the corner before, even though your exit looked good. It's maybe the shifting or the averaging. I'm not too certain about that so far. But you could brake a little bit more aggressive, slightly later. Although Smarty missed the apex a little bit, maybe the later is not that great of an idea. Or maybe just slightly later, maybe not 11 meters like it's indicated, but rather maybe 5 or so. But you could ramp up pressure more aggressively. And in terms of peak and the middle of the braking zone, that's, apart from minor fluctuation, looks pretty much identical. There's nothing really to change there. And you're releasing a little bit earlier, which might also contribute to your ability to sort of take the corner a little bit tighter, since you have a little bit more cornering capabilities when you're earlier off the brake. So that's good. You're sort of losing a little bit on entry there, as you can see. It's climbing up from 1.41 to 1.7, 1.8 almost, actually 1.8 briefly. But you're then gaining a good bit back. You actually sort of, you have gained something until the middle to exit of the first corner. And there you're sort of losing a little bit again, as you're sort of not really aggressive enough on the throttle. You're sort of a little bit on the throttle, and then you're just modulating it too much and not aggressive enough. You could gain even more time,
Mm-hmm.
especially with the line you have taken and
Mm-hmm.
your, uh, yeah,
I have quite a
really
bit of
good recoil speed.
steering lock though. I don't know if that somehow contributes.
Yeah, you seem to have a lot of steering. Well, that's right. You should have a lot less there. Although I'm not sure whether that's also caused by the average. Let me quickly check your fastest lap. How it looks there. Yeah, the difference is 42 100ths of a second, but there are also the uh, actually
Yeah.
your line looks similar. You're earlier into the corner, apex is the same, and you're tracking out a little bit further. In that case, actually, the line looks a little bit worse for you.
Mm-hmm.
You could sort of stay out longer,
Mm-hmm.
hit the apex at around the same
Yeah.
point, or
Mm-hmm.
yeah, actually you could apex a little bit later, I believe, and sort of keep a tighter line in the middle of the corner and then track out
Mm-hmm.
wider.
Mm-hmm.
It seems that the lines are sort of
Yeah.
inverted again.
Yeah.
On average, it seems that you're a little bit further on the inside, and the
Yeah.
line looks pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then your fastest, it's actually the other way around.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's also visible that you're much later on the throttle because of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Since you're sort of running a little bit wider mid
Yep.
corner, it takes you a good bit longer to get to full throttle.
Yeah.
Although still the time difference 42 100 is not all that much. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
for it's just,
Yeah.
considering it's only one corner, it is something, but it's not too terrible.
Yeah.
Could be much worse. Okay, I'm going back to the average now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, we talked about brake, we talked about throttle. Steering is, uh, apparently due to the averaging, there's a lot of steering wheel angle.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually hard to believe that you're steering that much. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of unlikely. But yeah, in terms of fastest lap, yeah, you should be a little bit tighter in the middle of the corner
Mm-hmm.
and just a little bit more on exit,
Yep.
as in some of the other corners as well already. Yeah, but other than that, braking looks fine.
Yeah.
That's really good. Also time loss is kind
Mm-hmm.
of low.
Yeah.
I guess that corner is mostly okay.
Yeah.
Gear choice is good as well.
Yeah.
But you stay in second for that corner. That's
Mm-hmm.
the correct thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions for
No.
that part?
No. Not for this one. Okay. Final corner. This one is tricky. For a while, initially I was just lifting up. I wasn't braking. I actually don't know if this session I started braking or not.
At least the average shows that there is no brake input.
Yeah, I think I used to not brake, and I think in the last session I started braking some.
Basically, what I see, or what I think is happening there, at least according to the average in the line, you're starting from further outside, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
But you're then transitioning too early towards the inside,
Mm-hmm.
and you're then sort of apexing a little bit too early for
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of prevents you from accelerating as early and as hard.
Mm-hmm.
So I would recommend, for one thing, to slow down a little bit for that corner.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, you started braking already for that sector, so I would definitely do that. You seem to be too quick into that corner, and also try to turn in a little bit later, and then sort of set the car up for acceleration a little bit earlier. As
Yeah.
the next thing that's coming is a insanely long straightaway.
Yeah.
your focus should definitely be on getting as good of an exit as you can get, and then yeah,
Yeah.
the time should decrease. I mean, exit is key for that particular corner. For the corner before, it's not all that important since the distance between the second to last corner and the last corner is kind of short. But in the last corner, the exit speed is definitely the thing to pay attention to.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So tap on the brake and then start turning it later so that I can straighten out the exit.
Yeah, exactly. I just stay on the outside for a little bit longer, not transition to the middle of the road as early, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
just arc it into the corner
Yeah.
and stab the throttle and hope for the best.
Right. Okay, cool. That's a lot of things to take in. What I try to do is I try to usually focus on one or two turns, but then I realize I spend a bunch of time, like multiple sessions, focusing on those two turns, and then I'm not really necessarily improving on the others. Do you have any advice, like how to be more efficient in taking in um, the feedback, the learning on all the different corners?
That's a difficult question, really.
I mean, is that a reasonable approach, like two corners at a time, and then just keep working at it until uh, am able to consistently repeat it, or should I like alternate, like do a session focusing on two turns and then focus on two other and sort of let the learning from the previous session sink in more subconsciously without necessarily trying too hard?
You can certainly switch. I mean, at some point when you only focus on one or two corners for too long of a time, it sort of becomes ineffective, and you're just sort of starting to try too hard for that particular corner. And I don't think that it will be that effective at that point anymore. So it might be reasonable to just focus on one or two corners for a while, maybe half an hour or so, or 45 minutes, and you should see improvements. And if you sort of come to a point where the improvement sort of starts to become either very small or there is no improvement anymore, then just switch corners, focus on other things, and then reevaluate, and then pick the opportunities that seem most promising again, and then again half an hour, 45 minutes per opportunity, until you sort of hit a plateau, and then
Yeah,
next round.
I guess.
It's an iterative process. It's no as usually with practice, no matter what you practice, it's usually not leading to anything if you are trying too hard and focus on one thing for too long at a time. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't
So
know.
I think last couple of weeks definitely I noticed this pattern. I look at compare the average versus the fastest, either my fastest or Marty, and it's usually the couple of turns. I mean, I have some improvement, but I still remain the most inconsistent, and I just kept working on it, but I didn't necessarily feel I'm making that much progress. So I mean, I always thought I should just focus on the sectors where I have the biggest amount of time to gain, whether in terms of average or fastest, but it just more than 45 minutes is probably not going to be effective. If I'm not able to make a bigger dent in 45 minutes, my time is probably better spent somewhere else, even if it's a smaller amount of time.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. Awesome. I don't think I have any other questions. I have plenty of homework. Um, so if you have time later in the week, I know you're busy with the World Championship race, but maybe we can do a follow-up and see how I've progressed.
Yeah, sure. There shouldn't be a problem. I mean, as long as I don't have to drive a car that is different than the MP430,
Right.
no big deal. I should be able to find an hour or two to have a follow-up session. That is absolutely no problem.
All right, cool.
Just let me
Awesome.
know when you want to do it, and we can schedule it, and it should
All right.
work.
Excellent. All right. Thanks a lot, Martin. Have a great evening, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, have a great evening as well.
Bye.
Bye.